Welcome to Cuppa with a Doula. I'm your host, Alicia. I'm an exercise physiologist by trade. I'm also a doula and I'm a mum to two. I created this podcast over a year ago now to allow mums to have a platform to safely share their birth and parenting journey, regardless of where they birth, whether it's a hospital birth, it's a planned C-section, whether they birthed at home, and whether they had a midwife present or not. It's all on Cuppa with a Doula. And every month, I also chat with an expert in the field of pregnancy, birth, and parenting in the aim to be able to share expert knowledge and raise awareness about important topics. So if you've been enjoying the podcast, please consider subscribing either on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast from. I'm also on YouTube as well, so you can watch the interviews if you'd like. And if you wouldn't mind, please leave a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It really helps the algorithm to find me, to then share what I do so that more mums, more parents to be can find me. So with this in mind, I'll leave you with the episode now. If you want to share your story, head over to the show notes. There's a link there and you can fill out the form and I'll get in touch with you to record your incredible birth and parenting journey. In today's episode, I am chatting with Sarah. Sarah is a mom to two. She's a special ed teacher and she's also an author because she wrote a children's book. There will be more coming up on the podcast about Sarah's book, so keep your ears peeled. But in today's episode, Sarah is taking us through her two home births. From the beginning, Sarah was very strong-minded. She knew she wanted a home birth. There was no alternatives. That's what she wanted. But what she takes us through is the journey she went on when pretty much nothing went according to plan in both her births. You will hear about the fact that in both Sarah's birth, her sister Chris, who is a midwife, played a really important part in her pregnancy and labor and birth. And this is so special. So Sarah's sister was present at both her births, almost did not make it to the first one. To me, one of the key messages in this episode is really to do your birth preparation, do your homework, do the research, know the evidence, know what you want, and then really trust the process. And obviously with birth, you're really jumping into the unknown. No one knows how their birth is going to unfold, but it's all about trusting the process and trusting your instincts. And this is exactly what Sarah did. And so without further ado, I will leave you to listen to the two incredible home births of Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Do you want to start by introducing yourself? So telling the listeners your name, where you're living, and who is in your family.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm a special ed teacher. I have two beautiful kids, Harvey, who is about to turn 4, and Layla has just turned 2. I have a husband, Mark, who is amazing, and we live in Victoria, down in Geelong, near the Surf Coast.
Oh, beautiful. That's a great place.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Yeah, we're very happy down here.
Oh, nice. And you get the nice Victorian weather, I guess, with all 4 seasons.
It has its negatives, the weather down here, but we're in summer at the moment, so I'm very happy.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, amazing. So, Sarah, one question I ask all my guests is, did you always want to be a mum?
Yep, I did. I probably wasn't, you know how you have to meet some people and they're like, oh my God, I can't wait to be a mum. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And I probably wasn't that keen. Having said that, I did always want to be a mum, and Mark and I always talked about it. We were just in a position where, you know, we studied later in life. So we wanted to finish our degree. We wanted to work. We wanted to get married, have a honeymoon, settle in as husband and wife, and then start our family, which we did. And I'm really glad that we did it that way.
That's busy, isn't it? Finish study, career, marriage, wedding, honeymoon, important before kids, I feel, because that part can be forgotten about. So,
I think so. Yeah. Yep. And then we got pregnant a year, or just over a year after being married. So
Wow. And so
yeah.
Harvey's conception was a planned one, wasn't it?
Yes. Yep. It was planned because I'm a teacher, and a certain amount of control comes with being a teacher. We mapped it out and thought, okay, for me to finish the year, because I had a beautiful little prep class and I didn't want to hand them over at, towards the end of the year. So I thought, okay, if we start trying in May, that'll see me to the end of the year. And sure enough, we were very, very lucky, and we got pregnant the first month we tried. We're very lucky.
Wow. Yeah, because since you're a teacher, and obviously you, as you said, you want to finish the year with your class, obviously. It's like, do you just open a calendar and go, okay, well, 9 months from, the end of the year, that's this. But if I allow for maybe, wiggle room, because maybe we don't conceive on the first go, you land on May.
Yep. No, we were very lucky. I will point out that the year before that, I had a few health issues. Really long story, but I got a parasite on our honeymoon in Thailand. So come home and just had a whole lot of things happening with my body that I wasn't aware of. I did not know what was happening. I got misdiagnosed with appendicitis, so got rushed into surgery, took my appendix out. Oh, no. You actually don't have appendicitis, you have endometriosis.
Wow.
So that was a whole, big thing. And then still going past a couple of months, I still had so many issues. And then that's when my naturopath diagnosed me with a parasite.
Wow.
And it turns out, there's a lot of science behind it, but this parasite was set to have triggered my endo. So I always had it, but I just, it just laid at bay. But so long story short, I was really healthy. I'd cut out gluten, I'd cut out dairy, sugar, alcohol. I was going to the gym. I was extremely fit. I was doing acupuncture, all to get my body recovered from the parasite and to support my endo, which was really quite painful at this stage. So I think that really helped. Oh, and I was on a lot of supplements that my naturopath diagnosed me with just to level out all my hormones. So I think my body was just in a really good place, with all that hormonal support. And cutting out gluten and dairy is always really good. So I think my body was just really, really ready to fall pregnant.
Wow. And so they saw the endo in your surgery, but obviously they didn't do anything because they were not there for that reason.
Yep. So that was really hard. And then so they booked me into an outpatient's appointment, and it was semi-urgent, the outpatients. And it's so funny. So that was in May of 2018. So then this follow-up outpatient's appointment was just after Harvey was born in February 2020. So I cancelled that because I was, doing different things, and I'd supported my endo, and, so I didn't end up attending that. But since then, we have figured out, obviously that I have endo and just how to best support it.
Yeah. So getting excision surgery is not on your plans, I guess, for
not at the moment, because I've just gone through pregnancy and breastfeeding. My endo has kind of disappeared and it hasn't come back as bad as what it was before I was initially pregnant. So I'm just keeping tabs on it. I just support it with a bit of supplements, and we'll wait and see if it does come back to what it was before I was pregnant.
No, that's right. And it's good that you got diagnosed by total chance, really. That, they were in there and they knew what to look for, because endo can be really tricky to identify when it's a, I guess, general surgeon or an abdominal surgeon who's not specialized in endo. For them to see it is really is really good. And then it's good that they actually referred you. I mean, the appointment being like a year and a half later is such a good summary of our current health system. I think. But anyway,
100%.
So you're a teacher, so you mapped out when you wanted to be pregnant to for it to work with your work, and you got pregnant. Did you know much about pregnancy? Did you know what to do next? What was it like?
Yeah, so it was a real shock when we found out. And because again, going back to my body, I was really in tune with my body. So I knew that I was pregnant when I was like ridiculous, a week and a half. I thought, oh, something's not right. Sure enough, at 2 weeks I took a test and it was positive. And so my husband and were just like, what? And then, you know, my husband's like, oh, you know, take another test. It might be, you know, false positive. And I took another test, and sure enough, I took a blood test, and it was happening.
Yeah.
But yes, I was ready. My sister is a midwife. She had 2 kids already. I'd had a couple of friends that had kids. So, you know, I supported their pregnancies and their postpartum. I was always looking after my niece and nephew on my side and on Mark's side. So, you know, I felt that I was in a pretty good position. I knew as much as I think it was a really good starting point. I'd done some reading. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that your sister is a midwife, because did she at that time work within a hospital system as a midwife?
Yeah, so she would have been a midwife for probably 8 years, I think, working in Geelong Hospital. So she actually works now in the MGP program. Do you have that in New South Wales?
Yes,
the midwifery
we do.
group practice.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she did a fair amount of work on the ward, but then was lucky enough, and she got a job at the MGP program, which she still does now, which is such an amazing program that I just hope keeps going and going and going, because I think women need it. I think it's amazing.
There's not enough MGPs, and when you've got MGPs, they're so small. They've got so few midwives working, you know, within them, that they can only take like a handful of women, you know, every month and so on. And you've got a lot of women that apply for it, you know, like being first-time moms, having a low-risk pregnancy and so on. And even though they apply really early on, they just don't get in because there's not enough staff, you know, to support these women.
Yeah.
And we know that MGP is a gold standard. It is the best care for the woman. It is the best care for the hospital. It is the one that's actually in the long term, if you talk money, it's actually saving the hospital a lot of money. It's got the best outcomes for mum, for baby. It's brilliant, and it's not available everywhere, and it is such a shame.
Yeah, definitely.
So had your sister told you much about, you know, what was likely to happen if you went through the hospital system? Because obviously there was a chance that you may or may not get into an MGP if you went through the hospital system for your pregnancy.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about it. Her first birth, she birthed at home. She had an amazing home birth. And then for her second birth, she moved away. So her first house was only like 5 minutes from the hospital, which, you know, adds to just, you know, that little comfort factor of being closer to the hospital. So she then moved 30 minutes away from the hospital. So she thought, she better not do a home birth. She birthed at a birth centre instead, which was amazing. So yeah, I was there, you know, and I saw all that process, and I knew how amazing it was to birth at a birth centre or to birth at home. I was definitely thinking that was my way to go. And we just talked about, and obviously like hospitals are amazing. Like they do save lives. I think Chris, my sister Chris, just made that decision because she just felt safe at a birth centre or at home. Yeah. Good. So then that definitely got Mark and I talking about, you know, what way are we going to go?
Yeah, no, and exactly, you know, it's the thing I talk about in the podcast is the 3 pillars of birth. You know, you need to be safe. You need to feel safe. You need to be undisturbed and unobserved. And the definition of safe, to start with, is very different to everyone. So as you said, you know, for your sister, well, she felt safe at home or in a birth center. Good. For you, it was like, okay, well, where do I feel safe? Because now that you've had, you know, the amazing chance to witness a home birth, right? And then a birth center birth, you kind of had like 2 really different, you know, models of care there. So you could reflect on both and be like, okay, well, what do I feel like? Who do I want in my space? How do I envision this birth? You know, what do I really want? You know, how do I want to birth this baby? So really interesting. So what was safe for you then?
So safe for me wasn't at a hospital, essentially. Yeah. And I mean, the stats have changed since Harvey was born 4 years ago. But back then, the Caesar rate at the hospital where I live was 30%. I think it's like 50 or something. I actually didn't check up on it. And I just thought 30%, that's pretty high. And I just, you know, I wanted an undisturbed birth. I wanted an unmedicated birth. I wanted an intervention-free birth, essentially. Yeah. So straight away I said to Mark that I would like to birth at home. He understood exactly where I was coming from. He just wanted to be, not that he wanted to be at a hospital, but he just, and at the what ifs, and I get that.
Yeah.
Like, I get that there's some home births
Definitely.
that have gone unfortunate. So we actually agreed to birth at the birth house, which is a birth centre in Geelong, 10 minutes away from the hospital.
Nice.
And I thought that was a little bit of a happy medium. I wasn't at home, but I also wasn't at the hospital. My first birth, So we did decide to birth at the birth centre. And then that did not go to plan, which is amazing for me. And Mark just had to get on board because it was all happening. And, I ended up birthing Harvey at home.
Look at you. Look at you go.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, that's amazing. But yeah, it's really interesting because I was literally going to make the assumption that because Mark, obviously his sister-in-law, being your sister, Chris, is a midwife, she would be able to obviously educate him around, how safe it is to birth at home, especially when you've got a private midwife and so on, right? So I was going to assume that Mark would be on board from the get-go to have a home birth because of Chris, basically being a educational support person, So there you go. I shouldn't make assumptions.
No, and I mean, Mark was and he was incredibly supportive. It is just, when you have no idea what to expect, as much as you plan, as much as you prep, and things do go wrong. And we were so fortunate to have an amazing, experienced midwife who was there to assist my sister and her 2 births. So we knew Lynn, and she's so incredible. And we had a lot of discussions about, back when we thought we were birthing at the birth house, that Lynn is that experienced and she would know when things just don't feel right, that really gut intuition. And we just said to Lynn a number of times, if you think we need to transfer, 100%, you just let us know and we will transfer. And so that got Mark a bit more on board with feeling okay at the birth house.
Yeah, and I get it, from a man's perspective, you were at the birth of your sister, well, at the births, at your sister giving birth, let's say, so it wasn't your sister being born. I guess Mark maybe wasn't there, or it's not the same for men. They don't experience birth the same way because it's not a whole body experience for men, I think, they're obviously there, they witness, they support, they're physically involved, they're emotionally involved, but their body's not pushing a human out, let's say. So it's not the exact same.
Yeah, and I think it's just, they're not in control, and not even in a bad way. They are in a point helpless, like they can only do so much. And, we did a lot of birth prep too, but, in labour, I kind of didn't want that. I was like, no, I'm right. I don't need a back rub. Just, stay there. I'm good. Like, just leave me alone in a nice way. And I think that's hard for guys because, there's some amazing dads out there that just want to do it and they want to help and do everything they can to support us through that process. And I just think, when they're not as in control as they would like, it can be really hard. Yeah.
And there's also, I think, as you said, this maybe fear of the unknown, you don't know what you're going to walk into. You've never given birth. It's your first pregnancy. He's never seen you give birth. It's like there's a lot of unknown. It's like, well, yes, Chris gave birth this way and so on, but it's like, well, obviously Sarah is different, Sarah's not Chris. So, the birth could go a number of ways, obviously. And as you said, it didn't even go to plan anyway. In a good way.
In a very good way. Very thankful for the turn of events.
So you booked in at the birth centre. I'm sure you would have had to book at 5 weeks of pregnancy to get in, right?
I think I called Lynn, because I was quite close with Lynn. She obviously knew me and was a co-worker of Chris's. So I called her at 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
She's like, yep, all good. I've popped you in. And then she said, just call me back at 12 weeks and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So what was it going to be like, this model of care? Was it, so Lynn was going to be your assigned midwife who you would see for your appointments, yes?
Yeah. So, it's essentially like hiring a private midwife. The birth house is this amazing program in Geelong that there's maybe 4 5. It has changed recently. There's a few midwives that, just support the women that want this kind of care. And then within this model of care, we can choose whether we birth at the birth house or we can birth at home. So the birth house is just near the hospital. It's this beautiful old building that has a lot of information evenings, a lot of parent support groups. My chiro actually used to run a room from there. So I used to go there and get a massage or have some chiro support. And then out the back through this beautiful little garden is just this birth retreat, we call it. So it just almost looks like a little hotel room. It's just this open planned room with a bed, a birth pool, a little kitchenette and a big bathroom. So, you've got everything there that you would need. They've got beautiful fairy lights and buntings, and it's a really, really beautiful space that a lot of women have been really lucky to birth in. It's since then, I think about a year ago, has closed down, which is really unfortunate, but they're still offering private midwife support, but just in your own house, not in this retreat, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. In terms of if we talk money, was it the same as hiring a private midwife, like you'd pay out of pocket, or was it under Medicare, I guess?
I think a little bit was under Medicare, but the bulk of it, we had to pay out of pocket,
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. This birth center, which I've never heard of, which is now, as you said, it's essentially private midwifery in your home. Wow, beautiful. Wow. So you mentioned birth education before. Did you do your birth education obviously through Lynn, your private midwife, and probably your sister Chris would have helped as well, but did you do anything else?
Yeah, so obviously had lots and lots of discussions with Lynn and Chris. I did a lot of reading. I love Rhea Dempsey.
Yeah.
So I read her books, and we did hypnobirthing.
Amazing.
For our main birthing class, which was everything, and I recommend that to everyone I speak to. And it just felt right for Mark and I to do that way. And so we just did a couple of days down in Torquay. Rosie from Geelong Born, it was just amazing. She's so experienced. She's a midwife. I think she works as a doula as well, and she just had just the most incredible program that just resonated with us. We just got it, and we just thought, this is right. We've totally got this.
Wow, amazing. That's amazing. So was the plan for Chris to be at your birth? Was she going to be a support person, or was she going to be a backup midwife?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about this with Lynn as well, whether we wanted her there just as a support or actually being the backup midwife. Yep. I left it up to Chris because I didn't want her to feel like she had to work if she wanted to just support her sister and support her niece or nephew. And then obviously, if the baby needed a little bit more extra support, was she happy to take her sister hat off and put her midwife hat on and, potentially do some work with the baby to make sure that they're okay. And she said, as long as I was happy, she was happy. So we just thought, yep, I want you to be my second midwife. And then again, as things do, that did not go to plan. It's a pretty funny story.
I can't wait to get to it. Wow. That's a really you must have a really amazing bond with Chris, right? To have her, obviously you were at her births and
I wasn't at her births. But I was there. Well, I was there when Stevie, her oldest, was 3 hours old. She birthed overnight, but supported her through all that pregnancy and leading up and postpartum and things. But
you must have such an incredible bond, because obviously it's special to have your sister witness you give birth, right? And whether she was going to be there as a support or as a backup, she would be there during the most intense time of your life, and then she would actually see her niece or nephew being born, wow.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes we just stop and talk about it again, and we're like, did that actually happen? It's pretty amazing. We're very lucky. And I think it's just brought us closer together as well.
Yeah. And so speaking of family, was your family on board with, when you were tossing having a home birth or birthing in a birth center, were there any fears that arise from, your close circles, or everyone was really on board, I guess?
Yeah, I think they were all on board. I think Chris did the hard work with her firstborn being at home. I think maybe mum, but definitely dad had his reservations, and he would have never stopped Chris, obviously, birthing at home, but it was just like, oh, careful, 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 you know. And I get it, because sometimes people only hear the negative stories that come out of home birthing. Like, you never hear all the positive stories. It's just, you know, and I get that. Like, I know that people, and again, they're not in control. They're just worried. And so dad was a little unsure. Having said that, when as soon as Stevie was born, dad was on the phone. Yeah, she was born at home, and you know, like, Dad, you didn't even want us to birth at home.
Wow.
But so Chris kind of did all the hard work. So I just come in and be like, yep, I'm doing a home birth or birth house. And then if people had some feelings about it, they didn't share it with me, which I was glad, because I didn't want to hear it. I was happy with our decision. It was an educated decision. And this is what we're going to do.
Exactly. Good. Exactly. And as you said, you know, you raised a really good point. It's often we hear the bad stories, whether it's hospital birth or it's home birth. It's people go to the bad ones, and they go to the bad ones of friends that have told them that they've heard this. So it's not even their stories at all, and it's potentially amplified and distorted somewhere along the way. And that's a shame, because people have had really, like, some women have had really positive hospital births, just like there's been some, you know, some really positive home births, and then there's been some not so positives, hospital and home births, for any number of reasons. You know, it's like anything. There is, if you're looking for it, it's out there. There is a mix of positive, neutral, negative, you know, it's out there, definitely. But we always talk about the negative. I don't know why. Why do we need to talk about the horror stories as well? You know, the really horrid ones where you're like, okay, no.
Yeah. And even now, you know, it comes up and I'm like, oh yeah, I had 2 home births, and everyone, they literally look me in the eye and say, I could never do that. Oh, how could you do that? I could never do that. And I feel like saying, well, I could never birth in a hospital, because it just wasn't right. Like, you know, we're allowed to have different opinions, and it's just met with such kind of, can I say, disgust sometimes, which is, it's not right. I want people to birth at home. I want people to experience it. With both births, I was on the couch or back in bed within an hour. Like, you know, why would people not want to do that? And I know that there's obviously a time and a place, and I had very straightforward pregnancies, and you know, we all felt safe to birth the way that we had planned. And I know, unfortunately, there are some people who cannot have a home birth, and I really you know, I really feel for them people. I just think for people to just really turn their nose up at me and be like, oh, how could you do that? No, it's too unsafe. I just think they're really unfair comments.
Yeah, it is. And it's a really sad reality that in Australia, if you look at the stats, you know, the most recent ones from, I think they're from 2021 or 2022, we're looking at 95% of women that birth within the hospital. And for, I think, a majority of them, there is this unknown that you can birth at home. So they either don't know that it even exists, or they don't feel that you can have a first birth at home because, well, I don't know how I labor, right? Well, of course you can have a first labor at home. Of course you can. You know, it's all, to me, it's all in the mind. If you set your mind up for, you know, this birth that you envision, whether it's a hospital or it's a home birth, again, we go back to safe. If hospital is the safe place for you and you want an undisturbed, you know, unmedicalized birth, then you can do it. You know, obviously you'll have to jump through some hoops and probably, you know, like be really headstrong and so on, but it's possible. It's definitely doable. But I think a lot of it comes down
goes
to,
back to your education.
You're a minority.
And it goes down to your support around you, you know, your midwives and, you know, if you've got a doula and your husband, and you really need to make sure you've got a good birth team around you and a plan, sticking to the plan.
Yeah. And I think the reason why home birth is sometimes, you know, frowned upon or like, oh, I could never do this, is because you guys are just such a small percentage of births in Australia.
Yeah.
Because, you know, again, it's society that tells us that if you don't birth in a hospital, it's not safe. But it is, and we know it is. And especially when you have a private midwife who, a private midwife will not let anything alarming, bad happen to you because they have insurance, they have a accreditation, they don't want to lose that, and obviously they don't want to see you or baby be hurt because they didn't act, in a timely manner. Like, they will not let anything bad happen to you. They will be there. They will see the flags when they arise, and they will be able to react in a timely manner and say, "Ooh, I'm seeing this. It could mean that. We might need to think, or, would you like to consider transferring, or would you like to, it's all discussions where the woman still has autonomy, but the midwife she's sharing what she's seeing, and she's providing options. So she's saying, we've got this option or we've got that option, basically. Yes. But it's still the woman's decision at any point.
Absolutely.
How did you prepare for this birth? What was the plan? Because you, I'm guessing, would be labouring at home until labour was somewhat established and then move to the birth house. Was that the plan?
Yeah. Yep. And that's what we decided, to stay at home as long as possible, and then to call Lynn and say, look, this is happening, not what do I do, but just keeping you informed, and talking about potentially the timings of the contractions and things like that. And then we thought that Lynn would let us know when to potentially move to the birth house, keeping in mind not to move too late, and because it's a 20-minute car ride as well from our house to the birth house. So we just talked about that, and we had things good to go here, like we had the exercise ball and things that we would need. Having said that, Harvey come early, so we weren't as prepared, like maybe physically prepared, as what we thought we were going to be. And it is just crazy, because I think after Harvey was born, Mark and I were just sitting in bed and we're like, what? Like, what just happened? Like, so he was born at 38.6. So for my first baby, that's reasonably early. Like my sister went over with her first two.
Yeah.
And so I still thought I had another 2 at least weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had so it was on Friday night I went into labour, and the next day we were off to a family reunion in Melbourne.
Okay.
And so we thought, we're going to get up, we're going to do the whole grocery shopping for the week, and that's when we would buy stuff for the birth and, all that kind of stuff, potential birth snacks to take to the birth house and everything. So obviously when I woke up at midnight or whatever it was Friday, we were just like, no, we're not. Like, we don't have any food here. Like, what are we going to do?
I love it.
So it was all, it was all, but I think it happened, we couldn't think about it. We just had to do it,
Wow. Okay, so take us through that day. So you wake up in the middle of the night. Do you know that it's labour, or are you like, nah, it's not labour at all?
So that night, so it was a Friday night, we'd had takeout for dinner, and I just felt off. And I had a really, really good pregnancy with Harvey.
Yeah.
I was really comfortable. I had a lot of chiro support, so my back was good.
Yeah.
But I remember asking Mark for a bit of a back rub before we went to bed, and I actually remember crying because I'm just like, I just feel really uncomfortable. It was just all a bit weird. But again, you'll be right. You're just tired. I'd worked till, so this is so he was born on the 18th of Jan. So, I finished work at end of December, bang Christmas, bang holiday, no maternity leave as such. I think I was on summer holidays. Does that make sense with Christmas?
Yeah.
And I hadn't rested maybe as much as I would have liked to if I had Harvey at a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember just going to bed thinking, oh my gosh, I hope I feel better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then I think I maybe woke up at 1 or maybe 1 o'clock and thought, oh, something's, I feel really weird. It wasn't contractions, but I'm just like, oh, something's a bit up. And I think I went on the ball because I didn't want to wake Mark up.
Yeah.
If I didn't need to. Yeah, I can't describe it. I just felt really weird. So I ended up waking Mark up and said, something's not right. And then and because obviously, I was only at 38.6, so, I was not expecting I was in labour. I obviously hadn't had my show or anything. And then, so we're in our master bedroom, and I thought, I'm going to be sick. And so rushed to the toilet and vomited so much. And then, too much information, but that's when my show had come out then, when I was strenuous, vomiting, oh my goodness, and then thought, wow. Oh my God, this is on here.
Mm-hmm.
And then so straight away, then I think I just started contracting. So we called Lynn straight away and just thought, this is happening. And I never, when you go through pregnancy and think, yep, time your contractions, and that's what you see on the movies, and that's what you talk about to know where you are at and things. We never did that, and I don't know why. I don't know whether it just all happened too quick and we forgot, or anyway, we called Lynn and be like, yep, okay. And I remember Mark was talking to Lynn at this stage, and he's like, oh, okay. And then he's like, I think you're in labour. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, no, we're not ready. And he's like, yep. She's saying, yep, you're definitely in labour. Anyway, so I thought, right, and Lynn's like, just stay at home, just breathe through your contractions, just be comfortable, go back to sleep. Oh my God, I was never going back to sleep. Lynn. Oh my God. So what I did though, I hopped in the shower and I shaved my legs, because you can't have a water birth with hairy legs. This is stuff that crosses my mind.
That's epic. Yeah.
So I'm in the shower, I'm shaving my legs. And then I remember, and so Mark was just like, I want to say off his tree. Like, he's like, right, hospital bag, quick, pack the car. And then we don't have this ready, quick, do this. And then and I'm like, Mark, chill, it's fine. We're fine. Wow. And then I remember I called Mark in and be like, no, I don't feel right. I think I just want to go to the birth house. So I just think, I don't know if I wanted that waiting around. I just wanted to quickly get there and then settle in.
Yeah.
Which is something that I didn't think that I'd want, but you know how you have to listen to your body, and my mind was just like, nah, I want to go there. Lynn doesn't have to go there straight away, but I wanted to, I think, get that transition over and done with. So hopped out the shower and I think I vomited again. And I'm an easy vomiter. I get migraines, so I kind of vomit quite often. So I wasn't concerned. It was just, it is what it is. Yep, quick packed everything, and we got in the car, and Lynn's like, yep, I'll meet you there. I think she said she was going to have a shower and just take her time to get in there. I think by this time it was like 3:00. So yep, we're on. And I remember that was a couple of my first big contractions in the car, and I just felt just this wave of the contraction coming, and it was just so uncomfortable. Like, I wouldn't even say painful, but just like, and I just feel it now. It was just so uncomfortable. Anyway, we only got 2 minutes down the road and Lynn calls and she's like, Sarah, I'm really sorry, but I've just found out someone's already in the birth house in labour. So their midwife hadn't, or whether it had just happened and their transition had just happened, but she hadn't messaged people. They got that bit of a message platform. So that didn't quite go as planned. And so Lynn's like, I'm really sorry, but we have a couple of choices. We can birth in the actual birth house, not in the retreat. There's like a really nice lounge room, which has been done before when there's 2 women birthing at the same time. She's like, we can meet at hospital, or she's like, just go home, I'll meet you at home and then we'll discuss it then. And I don't even remember thinking about it. I just like, turn around, Mark, let's just go home and we just regroup. And then I don't even know if Mark was like, oh my God, even if he was thinking that, he didn't say it, which I appreciate so much, because I just wanted to get out of the car. I didn't feel right. And you're in that position and you're stuck and you got your seatbelt on and oh my gosh. So we got home and I just remember Mark we had like, one of those small suitcases, putting that on the bed for whatever reason, and I just like, I just saw it and I just bent over on the suitcase, and that position for me, I was done. Like, I was just like, this is it, I'm gonna stay here, like I'm really quite comfortable. I think Mark, because we had a TENS machine, so Mark popped that on and we set that up, and then another wave of contractions, just like, oh my God. And I remember saying to Mark, it's coming, like it's coming, that wave of this starting of the contraction was probably worse than the contraction itself. And I was just labored, like just rocking my hips, bent over the bed, and like they still weren't even that bad of contraction. Like, I could still mostly talk through them, I could breathe, I was using my TENS, so I still felt pretty good. And then Lynn comes and she had the birth pool. Oh, and that's what she said on the phone. Oh, no, what happened? Yeah, so Lynn come and she were just talking through things, and I said, look, I have vomited, and Lynn actually said, okay, we'll have to keep an eye on that, because if the baby's not born in, not soon, but within 12 hours or something, she may have said, she's like, we'll be really conscious of you dehydrating, especially if you're going to keep vomiting. So, I really appreciated her saying that, just because I was then mindful of, how this birth might go. I think I only vomited twice, and it was just my body thinking, oh my God, what's happening? I think it was just going through a lot, and it was in shock, essentially. I think not thinking.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it is a shock, right? Like going into labor the very first time, it's like, even though it's gradual, labor itself, it's still like, it's super intense when it starts to settle in. So obviously your body has, reactions like, I need to empty myself, type thing, which, both ends, right? It can be really difficult, and it's common, when you get into established labor and you're close-ish to that transition point that, either you've got your bowels opening or, you're vomiting a lot. That can be a thing. And again, it's like, and some women don't have that. It's really like, so yeah, it really depends on the person. And as you said, for you, that was a big shock, because you're only 38 plus 6, obviously baby's, term, but you're thinking, oh, it's too early. Yeah. I can't be in labor, and plus I'm not ready for it anyway, like
I've got plans tomorrow, right?
Yeah. I've got things to do, Harvey, okay? Not now.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. We still get a giggle out of it, really. Yeah, so Lynn rocks up, and she's just like, she's got this aura about her. She's just the calmest person in the world, and she just walks in and just like radiates peace and relaxation. And so we've talked to her a little bit, and she's like, okay, what do you want to do? And I'm at the stage where I'm like, I don't know, like, tell me what I should do. And she's like, right, let's suss you out. So she checked, my heart rate, blood pressure, and Harvey's, to make sure he was cruising okay. And she's like, right, you're doing okay, Harvey's doing okay, I think we can do this at home. And she's like, I've got a birth pool in the car. And I'm like, okay. And I looked at Mark, and he's like, okay. And we're like, okay, let's do it. So then I went back to having contractions, and Lynn went out to the car and started blowing up the birth pool and filling it up. And again, like, we were meant to do the housework the next day. Like, the house was a mess, Yes. So then by this stage, I tried calling Chris just to let her know, because the plan was always that she was just going to come in straight away, and if I wanted her to, she was going to come in straight away and just support, even if she was there instead of Lynn. And she, obviously it was like 3:00, I think, so she was not answering her phone. And like, again, we weren't ready. Like, we hadn't had that discussion. I'm going to call you, make sure your phone's not on silent, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I remember I would have a contraction, breathe through all that, and then I'd get on the phone, nothing. Next contraction, get on the phone. Oh my God. And then Mark's calling her husband, and it just wasn't happening. She just was not answering. So I'm starting to get, anxious, maybe a little bit pissed off at your sister. Like, answer your phone. Like, let's go,
Of course.
And then all of a sudden I thought, like, I just felt so much pressure. And I remember calling Lynn in, because we were still in the master bedroom. So I called out to Lynn and I said, I need to push. Like, my body's telling me, like, I need to push. And she's like, okay, all right. And she's like, oh, would you mind if I did an internal just to see where you're at? And I'm like, no, that's fine. Like, because we talked about that, and I didn't really want internals if I didn't want to, like, and I was always going to be in control of that. But she's like, look, I think we need to see where you're at, just because, she obviously needs support. Yeah, so she did an internal, and again, she's so calm. She's like, okay, yep, there's your waters, yep, and you're 9 centimeters. She's like, I'm just going to make a few calls. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And she's like, oh, we might meet this baby really soon. And I'm like, what do you mean? My sister's not here. Like, what? So then Chris still wasn't answering her phone. So Lynn's like, okay, I'm going to have to call another midwife. Is that okay? And I'm like, no, of course.
Yeah.
Which we did have, we'd talked about that previously, if Chris wasn't going to be there, or, if Lynn was busy, because, Lynn goes on leave as well. we had two other midwives that were going to be around to support if needed. So she called one lady, she didn't answer. She called another lady, yep, she answered, yep, she's on her way. And then the other midwife answered, oh, yep, no, you come. So called the other midwife, no, you don't have to come, because she'd had to be really busy. And Chris is still not answering her phone. So then T, another beautiful, beautiful midwife who's a close colleague of Chris, she rocked up and helped set up the birth pool. And I hardly saw her. It was mainly Lynn. And again, it was mainly Mark and I just in our room. They came in if I needed, and they just occasionally come in just to check Harvey's heart rate. But I didn't see them. It was just Mark and I. I just remember, and we didn't have any music. I didn't feel like I wanted it. And I'd practiced a lot. Like, I'd visualized in all my birth prep, meditation music, and thought, yep, I had my birth playlist. But at the time, I think it was too much. I think I was still, I was too overstimulated with the way my body was feeling. So I didn't want any music. Oh, I've lost my train of thought. And they would just pop in. Oh, that's right. And so they were setting up the birth pool. And oh my God, so the soundtrack to Harvey's birth is this blasted birth pool being blown up. That and it took about 20 hours. I cannot tell you how long it took to blow up that birth pool. And then filling it up and tap fittings. And I remember, again, because we just weren't prepared. We weren't.
No, that's right.
That wasn't part of the plan. As happy as I am that it turned out this way, we, had to do this and use the laundry tap and to fill it up. And oh my gosh. And I just remember thinking, Chris, answer your phone. Your kids always wake you up through the night. Why aren't you waking up and checking your phone?
Yes.
It turns out that she did wake up. She just never looked at her phone. So thank God, I think it was about 5 o'clock. No, not even 5. Must have been 6:45 at this stage. Her husband must have woken up, checked his phone, and saw 1,000 missed calls from Mark and I, bolted down and said, Chris, you've got that many missed calls from Sarah. You got to call her. And Chris just remembers thinking, oh my God, so many F-bombs, oh. And so she called Lynn. She didn't call me. Yeah, quick, straight away. She was in the car on her way. But I remember, again, because we were meant to go shopping on the Saturday, we didn't have any toilet paper. We'd literally ran out of toilet paper. So it was right, get here quick and bring a couple of rolls of toilet paper. Again, you can't make this up.
That's epic. No, you can't. No.
Well. Yeah, no, you can't. So I was starting to get a bit annoyed at this stage, not annoyed, but all right, I want my sister here. I'm really uncomfortable. And I think I remember I was still over the bed, leaning over and thinking, I want to shower, because the birth pool was still filling up and it wasn't going to be comfortable for me. Mm-hmm. And I needed to do something. And looking back now, I was in transition because I just couldn't get comfortable and I wanted the shower. And then T said, oh, how about you hop on the ball instead of the shower, because the birth pool should be ready soon. So I remember hopping on the ball. This may have been a bit early, even at 6 o'clock or something. And then I thought, I need to get in the pool. I'm really uncomfortable. I want the pool. The pool was a really big part of our birth plan. And I love swimming. I did a lot of swimming when I was pregnant. I had a lot of baths, and I just visualized I was in the water. My back was really sore at that stage, obviously, because Harvey was just so low. I missed a part with so you know how I needed to push, and then Lynn did an internal and felt that was my waters and stuff. So then that went on for a little bit, and that pressure of my waters trying to bust out. Oh my goodness, probably I want to say worse than Harvey coming out, because it's just so I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, halfway through a contraction, my waters broke, and so I'm leaning over the bed and can't even tell you how much water came out. All over the bed, and we had towels and stuff all over Mark's legs and everything. But I just remember feeling instant relief.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I'm oh, fine. Okay, I'm good. I'm good to go now. So then I had another, I don't know, half an hour of okay contractions because my waters had broken. So then, I'm in transition. I was on the ball and I thought, I just got to get in the pool. And I hadn't heard, but Chris was on her way. They hadn't told me, but Chris was on her way. And I remember thinking, right, I'm hopping in the pool. And Lynn was like, no, it's not ready. It's too hot. And I just remember thinking, I don't care. I'm hopping in. I need to hop in. I need that relief. I need that different sensation. Mm-hmm. Anyway, hopped in, and she was a bit warm, but I was okay. So then I hopped in the pool at 7:30.
Yes.
Chris arrived 15 minutes later at
Mm-hmm.
7:45.
Yes.
Harvey was born at 8:00.
Oh.
So she just made it.
No. What? Okay. What? Did you
So,
see
yeah.
Chris arrive, and what did you feel then?
Yeah, so I was in the pool, and again I was hunched over. You know how they've got the little seat in the pools? Most pools have that. I was kind of hunched over that seat and holding onto Mark's hand, and yeah, next minute she walks in, and I felt like just saying, "Where have you been? Like, I've been calling you." But I was just relieved. I was just so relieved. Yeah, I think I actually did get a bit emotional. And then obviously Chris got a bit emotional, and she's like, "It's okay, I'm here now. And she felt really jibbed. Like she was really annoyed at herself for not answering her phone, for not, you know. And I mean, it worked out perfectly. It's fine. I absolutely no hard feelings. Like she comes, she still saw it. She just felt a bit jibbed. And obviously, like, because the labour was, I think, only like 7 hours. So it was a really reasonably quick labour for a first-time mum. She's like, "Oh, I just feel jibbed that I didn't see you labouring." But yeah, anyway, so she comes, she had a camera, and then I had Lynn obviously just checking in every now and then with Harvey. And then T was taking photos, and she was just pottering around. Like, I hardly saw her because she obviously didn't really need to be there, but she was happy to stay. And I think she asked, did I want her to go? And I'm like, gosh, no, you've done the hard work too. Like, stay. You're staying for this. So it was nice to have the third midwife there to take photos and things. Yeah, and so I was really comfortable in the pool. And then, things settled down, I think, for a little bit. And then, I didn't know, I still thought Harvey was a fair way away, you know, because sometimes like that whole, you know, kind of pushing stage, what's it called? The third stage of labour, is it?
Second stage?
The second stage?
Pushing?
Yeah, that can take quite a long time for first-time mum. So I still thought that Harvey was a little bit away.
Yeah.
And I just got in the zone, I think. Like, I was holding Mark's hand. Chris was there. I remember Mark feeding me some chocolate.
Amazing.
In between, I know, just what you need. In between contractions, and then just breathing. I was really quite comfortable. And then in another break of contractions, I heard the bathroom fan on, and I just remember saying to someone, "Can someone please turn that off?" Like, really calmly. I just needed that noise off because I was in my zone. And then I remember thinking, okay, something's happening. Like, I started to, you know, a really different sensation. And I don't like using the word pain because I don't think it was. It was just a different sensation that, you know, my body was doing its job. And I remember Chris saying, "Well, put your hand down there. What can you feel?" And I felt his head, as in just the crown. He just started crowning. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And Chris is like, "You're going to meet them soon." And I was like, "Oh, okay. And then, yeah, sure enough, next contraction, his head popped out. And then it was like the longest break between contractions. It was just like Harvey may have just been getting in the right position and just waiting, just regrouping or something. So I felt like, and I have no idea how long that was, but it felt like a really long break in contractions. And then, yeah, next transaction, oh my goodness. Next contraction, he come out, I think. Pretty sure it happened like that.
That's epic.
And yeah, so then I just reached down, and the cord was wrapped around his neck once. So Lynn just pounced, did a little trick, and she was gone again, like out of my space. I just picked him up and just like, I can't tell you, like, that feeling.
Yeah.
And, you know, you look over Chris, and Chris is crying, and Mark, and oh my God, like, yeah. And then just that feeling of like, I did it. Like, again, still processing that he's here because he wasn't meant to come for another 2 or so weeks. And I'm still in shock. I'm still processing that I'm in labour, let alone have this baby. And like, it's so cliche, but it's amazing. It's a miracle. You know, my body did this. Like, my body grew a baby, and I've just birthed him at my house in a birth pool. And then, so yeah, cuddled him for ages, and he squawked a little bit. And so, you know, we knew things were okay. And then I said to Mark, right, because we didn't know he was a boy. I felt it in my bones. I named him Harvey. Like, he was a boy. Like, I just knew it. And yeah, looked down, and sure enough, he was a boy. And I just remember losing it, like, just proper, like, pure ecstasy. It was amazing.
It's your story is amazing because we know that when you visualize your birth, when you plan your birth, it becomes really important that even though that things can, don't always go to plan, well, you've got a trail, right? So you've got, you're going to birth at the birth house, this is how it's going to be. And then, the unknown is, oh, am I going to enjoy, being in the water, or am I going to enjoy, the back squeezes, or, whatever. And for you, it's like you didn't even make it to your place of birth. Like, so already the whole plan is thrown out. Like, obviously your house wasn't set up for a home birth. You didn't have covers on your bed, and you didn't have covers on your couch, and you didn't have a birth pool. Like nothing was prepped. You didn't have
toilet
food.
paper.
Yes, didn't have toilet paper, exactly. So it's like nothing's ready.
Yeah.
And then obviously you're thinking, okay, it's too soon. Nothing's ready. Oh, but wait, I'm going to birth now.
Yeah.
Okay. And like you can't do anything about it anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, it's happening.
And I think I just embraced it. And it was, I think, if I had have been thinking that my first birth was a home birth, like I would have done too much prep, I think. Like I would have gone out and bought everything and, so I think it was perfect because all you need is just some support. You don't even need a pool. Like we were just lucky enough that that Lynn had a pool. I would have hopped in the shower or the bath or something.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and you just have to embrace it. You just have to embrace what is thrown at you, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of hypnobirthing as well that you did. It's probably telling you, like, teaching you that, a birth it usually doesn't go to a plan, right? Because there's so many factors, there's so many things. You don't know when it's starting, you don't know how, you don't know how you're going to handle it, you don't know how baby's going to handle it, and then you don't know where you're going to have aches, what is going to help relieve that, and there's obviously the whole world of unknown, right? And so I think with hypnobirthing you learn to be really open-minded and to just embrace things as they come and to accept them for what they are, and then just go with it, because that if you go against it, like you try and not push when you need to push, well, that's not going to be helpful, and that's going to be probably more aching for you because you're trying to work against your body, so that's not going to work well.
Wow. And like you said, it is just your mindset. Like with hypnobirthing, you talk about that they're not contractions, they're surges.
Yes.
And it's not pain, it's sensations. And and that's why I don't call it pain. And I still, like, obviously, it is such a different feeling, but I think it was just such a uncomfortable sensation. Like I still don't call it pain. And in my experience, and I know, like, everyone's pain threshold is different as well. And I know that, some people are like, oh my gosh, epidural, need the epidural straight away. And then that's fine. But to me, I wanted to feel everything. I wanted all these sensations and I was welcoming it. And, I would give anything to give birth again, because I just think it's the most amazing experience. And hypnobirthing really helped with my mindset, just keeping it positive, and it's okay, and just embracing it.
Yeah, exactly. And so how was your postpartum then? Because you had, I'm guessing you would have had Lynn coming for the next maybe 4 to 6 weeks after Harvey was born?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe she just did 4 weeks, but Chris was around.
Yes.
Chris did a lot. Yeah, so I think Lynn came every second day at the start, and then just maybe weekly. But she just said to call her if I need anything. But Chris had the scales in her car as well, and she was always passing by, and she wanted to cuddle Harvey as well.
Of course.
She spent the first night with us, and she just cuddled Harvey while Mark and I could sleep. And really, really lucky that I had Chris. And she was a mum of 2. She'd gone through a lot. She knew exactly what I was experiencing, what Mark was experiencing, and really, really good. I want to say kind of easy postpartum with Harvey, and he was a really settled baby too. The main thing with Harvey was feeding. He had a tongue tie.
Oh, okay.
So it was really quite painful for me to feed. And it was really important for Harvey to be exclusively breastfed. That was just one thing that I really wanted to do with Harvey. So we ended up getting his tongue tie reviewed at 4 weeks in the end, because we kind of half diagnosed it when he was born, but it wasn't enough to think, okay, no, he needs it corrected. We were just going to see how things went. But with feeding, it was really quite painful. We were scared of my milk supply. My nipples were getting really quite damaged. So we had an LC came in and she
wow.
said, look, I think you need to get it reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that at 6 weeks by the time I could get in. So by this stage, and he was a cluster feeder too, like every night.
Yeah.
He didn't really have a witching hour, but he cluster fed every night or every evening. So that was hard. That was really hard for me to just keep going and not give a bottle.
Yeah.
So we got it reviewed at 6 weeks and then instant relief with feeding. And then by 8 weeks I was feeding pain-free. So that,
wow.
That's
was amazing.
The most,
Wow. It's amazing how getting, that tongue tie just released makes a world of difference, right? And then I'm sure from there on your breastfeeding journey was a bit more straightforward. Is that right?
Yeah, no, it was perfect. I breastfed Harvey until he was 18 months.
Wow.
So really, really special. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I'm glad I persevered, and I know that, a lot of people can struggle to breastfeed, and it's hard. It is so hard. It is so hard with the amount of or conflicting information that you can get of how to build up your supply and your latch and feeding, and you can overfeed a breastfeeding baby, but no, you can't. Like, there's so much information out there. But I was really lucky that I persevered through that really hard 8 weeks, and then it was amazing.
Wow, good on you. And so at what point did you and Mark start having a conversation around, well, we want to expand the family, and did you plan to conceive Layla then?
Yeah, so we always knew we wanted to have babies close together. We said before having Harvey, we said 18 months, we want really quite close gap. Mark and I a little bit older. I was only 33 when I had Harvey, but Mark's 5 years older. So we were just really conscious of our age. Having said that, Harvey did not sleep. He was really tricky. So he was a year old and still not sleeping. So that was a really hard time for Mark and I. And we were thinking, gosh, I should be 3 months pregnant if we're going to our plan. And we just thought, I can't even think about that. Like, oh my gosh, like Harvey was up, like, I can't even tell you how many times a night, and waking every 30 minutes, and really like co-sleeping didn't even help. Like, we tried a lot of things. So it was really hard for Mark and I. So we just thought, no, we're not talking about it for a while. Yeah. And then, we got to a stage where Harvey started sleeping, things started settling down a little bit, and we thought, okay, all right, let's think about it. Again, we were really, really blessed with conception. We were going to start trying in May again, and then there would be around about 2 years difference. And then in April, we conceived Layla a month before we were ready to start actually trying.
Oh, fancy that.
Just a little surprise baby, but we embraced it. She was obviously meant for us, and it was it was amazing. We although we're a little bit shocked, we were obviously like, oh my God, we're really, really lucky. Let's do this again.
Yeah, and so this time, so you'd birth Harvey at home. Did you want to do a home birth again? Was that the plan?
Yeah, straight away I said, I'm doing this at home, and Mark's like, yep, I'll support you. So it wasn't a decision. It was we didn't have to think about it at all.
Yeah, was it going to be with Lynn again, or? Oh, and so, well, take us through this pregnancy journey. Was it different to Harvey's pregnancy? I mean, you obviously had a toddler back then, so quite tiring, I'm sure.
Yeah, so it was. I was a lot sicker with Layla. I wasn't too sick with Harvey. Just the normal kind of nausea that I could easily fix with a bit of ginger or a bit of tea or a bit of Macca's or all the good food. But Layla, I was vomiting. I had also gone back to work 2 days a week, so that was a bit tricky. So this is 2021, so COVID was still around. We were still in and out of lockdown. My school was closed, and it was, learning from home. So it was a lot. Like I was dealing with, a toddler, being in lockdown, being back at school with a toddler, being really quite sick with Layla. So it was a really different pregnancy. I couldn't do my prenatal yoga and things like that, just things that I just kind of took for granted with Harvey. I just did my yoga, 2 or 3 times a week. And so, it was really quite a different experience.
Right. Wow. That would be a lot to navigate. Like, obviously, as you said, the whole COVID and having to teach, obviously a whole different way, but you're also pregnant, but you've also got a toddler. And wow, that's just too much at once, obviously.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. So Layla was due in January, start of January.
Yeah.
So then, with all everything COVID, the vaccine mandate came out. It was October, I think November maybe it came out. So that was a lot to process as well. And, Mark and I had a massive decision whether we wanted myself to get vaccinated while I was pregnant. So we, it was a huge decision, but we made the decision not to get vaccinated for me. And that just felt right with us. I think I was like 32 weeks pregnant. Don't have too much to go. It's summer. COVID wasn't as bad as what it was over the winter months. If I just have to stay and isolate myself a little bit more just to keep us safe, I would. But that decision just made it, it just felt right for Mark and I.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there was a lot of unknown back then as well. There was a lot of things we didn't know about, COVID itself, about the vaccine. It was all new. Yeah, it was a really scary time, but also really a lot of unknown, which was, it's a lot of stress. Like, obviously, the pregnancy and the birth is already a big unknown. And then when you're adding things like, vaccines and so on that have never been around before, it's like, yeah. And as you said, you were 32 weeks pregnant. You were 8 weeks away, 2 months away from meeting your baby potentially, give or take.
And my husband was working as a nutritionist back then too, so he read up quite a lot about it. We felt that we were quite informed about the pros and cons, and for us there was just a little bit more cons of getting it than there were pros. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and it's a balance. Everything in life, in your decision as a parent, in your decision as a woman, is about pros and cons and weighing it for yourself, for your family, and making the best decision for your family that no one else can make, because they're not you, the parent of Layla and Harvey. So exactly. So how did the big day unfold? So this time, did your birth go to plan? If there is such a thing as a birth going to plan.
I'm going to say no, but it was amazing all the same.
Yes.
So I was really quite uncomfortable with Layla. Her head was engaged, it felt like, from 30 weeks. She was so low down. She was so locked and loaded. We couldn't wiggle her head when Lynn, had a feel around. She was definitely head engaged. I saw my chiro again weekly a lot, just for that all that back support. I just had that excruciating lower back pain for quite a long time. So Mark was giving me pressure points and massages and things that the chiro had showed him, but it was just so uncomfortable. And then because Harvey was born at 38.6, we just didn't know what Layla was going to do.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure we were prepared early. But do we even get prepared from 38 weeks? Because that's going to be really close to Christmas. Layla was born, she was due on the 6th of Jan.
Yeah.
But we're thinking, okay, well, Christmas Day, what's going to happen? What's our plan? And we had hired a birth pool. So as soon as Christmas come and gone, thank gosh I didn't birth. My nephew's actually born on Christmas Day as well. So I didn't want to take away from him, because, he shares his birthday with Christmas, and I didn't want him to share his birthday with a cousin, although I think he actually said that would be pretty cool. Bless him. So as soon as, I think day after Boxing Day, bang, we packed up the Christmas tree, we set up the birth pool in the house, and we just made sure we were set, because I was not listening to that birth pool inflate for another labour. I just couldn't do it. So there were a few times where I thought I was in labour just because she was so low down. I just had so many different weird sensations happening, and like, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? Like, that went on for what seemed like months. So Layla was, she was due on the 6th of Jan. She was born on New Year's Eve, so she came at 39.
Wow.
So my babies like to come out a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But so we obviously had no plans. We always go away because we've just come back from holidays. We always go away in the start of Jan camping. So we'd all but cancelled our holiday, thinking no, because for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Yeah, so I woke up at, I think, 11 o'clock, and I just couldn't sleep. And again, weird pains, but I was really struggling to use my bowels throughout with Layla's pregnancy. So, all those sensations just kind of turn into one, don't they?
Yeah.
And I remember messaging a friend. She's like, "Hey, you're awake. Are you in you're awake late? Are you in labour?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't think so, but I don't know." Like,
yeah.
And I was getting weird pains every 5 minutes, but I still wouldn't have called them contractions.
Yeah.
Like, it just, again, I just wasn't sure. So I called my sister, and there were so many running jokes about, right, from 37 weeks, you've got your phone not on silent. It's in your pocket. It's on loud. We do not want a repeat of Harvey's birth.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a running joke. So she obviously answered. I was like, oh, my God. I just felt like crying when she picked up. And she's like, "What? Are we on? Are we on?" I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure." She's like, "What? How are you feeling?" And I'm like, "I feel like I just need to go to the toilet, really. But, it's a bit intense and stuff." She's like, "Right, I'll come in and she'll just go to sleep. Like, if I'm not in labour, at least she's there." And I thought, that's fine. So she packed up some stuff. She's like, "I'll see you in an hour." She lives half an hour away. And then, I went and woke Mark up, because it just started to get a little bit intense. And by the time Chris arrived, I was in proper full labour. So this is like at 12, maybe 1 o'clock by this stage. Harvey was asleep, and we'd had a plan that if it was happening during the day, that Mum would come over to support Harvey, whether she would take him back to her house or just stay. We talked a lot about Mum staying and, being around to support me in labour. We just kept our options open, and it was just going to be whatever felt right at the time.
Yeah.
Which was
Makes
amazing.
sense.
So then when Chris arrived, we're in labour, right, let's start filling up the birth pool, and we set up our little birth space. And I think that was nice because I knew I was having a home birth. Like, I had things good to go. Like, I had a birth box that had this beautiful photo that I love of Harvey and I. I'd had a blessing weigh with all my really close girlfriends and close relatives, and they had all supplied me with a little gemstone bead. And so I'd made this beautiful necklace that was just going to empower me throughout this birthing experience. So that was there. We had salt lamp and fairy lights for the birth pool. So that was all set up, and we started filling that up. Harvey actually woke up. I think it just must have been the water running through the pipes, or whether he just felt it. I 100% think he felt it, and he just laid in bed for 3 hours, just awake, just laying in bed throughout my whole labour. And as soon as Layla was born, he went back to sleep. It's incredible. And we thought about getting him, but then we're like, well, no, but do we? And no, he's not calling out. Let's just leave him. And anyway, it happened a bit too quick with Layla, so we didn't have time to get him up. But then, sure enough, we looked at the monitor as soon as Layla had been born, and he was asleep. It was really sweet. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so then this time I was in the kitchen because it felt right. Like, we had the fairy lights on and the birth space, and so it was just Mark, Chris and I was just leaning over the kitchen bench. I just needed that position. It just felt right again, same as Harvey. And then I remember, having a contraction, leaning over the kitchen bench, and then I'd go and potter and just do this. And I just remember Chris looking at me, and she's like, "What are you doing? Like, just stay, like, just don't clean. Like, we're good. Like, you're in labour." But I felt, I don't know, I just wanted to, I don't even know what I was doing, actually, just walking around. And we had music on because it just felt right. That's what I wanted. Yeah, it must have got to, 2 o'clock, and things started to get a bit intense. Oh, so we'd called Lynn, but we said, "Look, Chris is here. She's happy for the moment. We'll call you when things progress a little bit more."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think, and looking back now, I was in transition, but I thought, oh, no, this is like, I'm getting a little bit out of control. Like, it's getting a bit much. I might put my TENS machine on.
Yeah.
Chris is like, oh, I reckon you're ready for the pool. And I'm like, oh, no, it's far too early. Like, I don't want to be in the pool for long, like long enough, but not too long. And she's like, oh, no, I reckon you're ready. And I remember saying, okay, I'm just going to go to the toilet. And she's like, Sarah, hop in the pool. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I will, but I'm going to go to the toilet. And she's like, Sarah, you're going to have this baby on the toilet. You need to hop in the pool. I'm like, I'll be back in a minute. Classic sister not listening to her sister.
Yep.
So I toddled off to the toilet, and 100% I did need the toilet, 100%. But obviously sitting on the toilet just put my pelvis in a completely different position, and holy moly, it was on. So Chris and Mark heard me from way down in our room, and they just came running, and there wasn't head on, but Chris knew. She's like, Sarah, this baby's coming. We've got to get you to the pool. But I couldn't really walk, like that sensation, like yes. Layla was just busting out, like she was just coming. And you know that whole like fetal ejection reflex, like I didn't have to do anything. She was coming. So I remember Chris, she had me from like pushing me from behind. I was standing, and then Mark had my arms, and they were just like pulling me. We had to like go from one end of the house to another. And all I remember, and obviously, so Lynn's not here because when I started, getting a bit noisier in transition, I heard Chris on the phone saying, look, it's coming. Like she's getting closer. I think you need to come. And she's 20 minutes away. So then Lynn left straight away. And then, so Chris and Mark are like transporting me slowly, hobbling. I don't even know how. Yes. And all I remember, again, priorities, I remember saying to Chris, photos, you've got to take photos. Please, you've got to take photos. And then she said, oh, what about mum? And I'm like, nah, don't worry about mum. There's no time. You just got to take photos. So I hopped in the pool. I don't even know how I did that. And then straight away bent over again, holding Mark's hand. And Layla was just coming. Like she was just that feeling of she was just and like so quick. Yes. And I was just like, Chris, I actually think I remember saying I'm scared. Like, what do I do? And Chris is like, pop your hand down there and push her back a little bit. Like not push her, but just slow her. But I couldn't. I was holding onto Mark's hands so tight, and it was taking all of my might. Like I couldn't move. And again, the birth pool wasn't filled high enough because again, it all happened a bit quick. And I remember my back, it was just excruciating. And I was saying, Chris, my back. And then so talking about it with Chris after the birth, like she was obviously going through so much, thinking, okay, I'm the only midwife here. I've got nothing. She's got no injection. She's got no Rhea. She's got nothing here. My sister's telling me to take photos. She's telling me to splash water on her back. Like, oh my gosh. But it didn't occur to me that Lynn wasn't there. Like I knew she wasn't, but I wasn't worried. It's okay. Like Chris is here. Mark's here. Like that's all we need. And like I knew because it was happening to me, like I still felt in control as much as Layla was just trying to come busting out. I felt in control. Yeah. And I just remember breathing and like I remember Chris, breathe, Sarah, breathe, and like slow. And she was almost like telling me off. She's like slow, splashing water on my back, taking a couple of photos. Breathe. It's okay. Lynn will be here soon. The poor thing, I put her through so much. Oh. Especially because I went to the toilet and not hopped in the pool straight away.
Yes.
And then, within, I have no idea how long, like 15 minutes, Layla was born. Wow. Again, just into the water, straight up into my arms. And then, like, straight away, Chris just, like, launched into the pool and felt the umbilical cord, and she could feel it pulsing because I don't even think she had a Doppler at that stage. Maybe she was on mat leave, so she didn't even have a Doppler on her. So, but she's so experienced. She knew what to do. She grabbed the the cord was wrapped around Layla's neck, but she quickly flicked that off, felt the cord. Layla squawked. Yeah. The cord was pulsing. Yeah, and Layla was born. And it was just like me, Chris, and Mark.
Wow.
It was amazing. And then, like, seriously, like 2 minutes later, Lynn comes waltzing in. Again, just so calm, just an aura, a beautiful aura about her. And she's like, oh, I didn't need to bring my bags in, did I? That's what she said. And Chris is like, oh, thank God you're here, like just breathing and processing. And but it was actually good that Lynn arrived when we did. I was in quite, I'm going to call it pain. I was in quite a bit of pain with my placenta. Like it just didn't feel right. I needed to get it out. So Lynn was there and she supported me through
Yeah.
that. And then,
Yeah.
I needed to get out of the pool. I wasn't comfortable. So I just hopped out of the pool straight away on the couch, all that beautiful, beautiful skin to skin.
Yeah.
And so that was 3:00. So I called Mum then, like, Mum, come over. She's like, what? Like, come over. So her and Dad rocked up at like 3:15. Like Layla's only half an hour old or something. And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would have been so intense. Obviously for you, like obviously, but for Chris, because as you said, from her perspective, if anything happened, obviously she's a midwife by trade, I guess. So she's obviously like, she's not there as your midwife, but she is a midwife. So she knows, potential flags that, and she's probably on the lookout because the primary midwife is not there, because Lynn's not there. So it would have been so stressful for her to be like, I'm not meant to be the primary midwife, but I have to be, but I have no tools. I have nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that this is going to be good, because otherwise I don't
know. This is my sister and this is my niece or nephew, and she's still telling me to take photo.
Of course.
So we did quite a few, like a lot of chats about it, and like I said to Chris, it was amazing. I would not have wanted that birth to go any different. Like, I'm not worried that Lynn wasn't there. Like, I knew you had it. I knew Layla would be okay. I was okay. And
there is this intuition, this mother intuition that starts, even in pregnancy, right, where you just know when things are going to be okay, just like when something's not right, even if you can't put words and you don't, even if the baby's in the womb, and you just know something's not right, and all you can say is something's not right, but you can't put words, you can't justify, you've got no proof, blah blah blah. It's the same with, you just know when things are going to be right. You just you can just feel it, right? You just know it's going to be fine. I love it. Wow.
So amazing. So we do love telling that story to people, and how I was yelling at her to take photos, and she got some really good photos, so well done.
Yes. Well, you sent me some. Were there of Layla's birth?
They were both Harvey and Layla's. I sent you some, so I can send you more if you need to. I just wanted you to have a bit of a visualize of the births that I was talking about.
No, I love the photo. There is one, and you can tell me if you want me to share them on my Instagram when your episode comes out. Actually, there is a beautiful photo where you're leaning against the birth pool. You've got, I'm not sure if it's Layla or Harvey, obviously, and you've got both Mark and I'm guessing it's Chris in the background, just looking at both you and baby, and you can just feel the support that you had. You can just feel it in this one photo. It is amazing.
Yeah. So that was Layla, and that was as soon as Lynn arrived. She's like, right, I'm taking a photo, and it was it's a really special photo for us.
Oh wow! And in this photo, I remember I looked at all of them, and this one really struck me because it's almost, I felt like it was your two angels that were there and looking over you and making sure that things were okay and supporting you. And I thought that was such a beautiful summary of obviously how the birth unfolded. Such a epic photo to take. And it's so good that obviously Chris took some photo and Lynn took some when she arrived, because you can't recreate that moment of the birth and the atmosphere and how it was. And like those photos are the best photos ever, because they're not staged. They're just, that's how it was in the moment. That's exactly how it was.
So raw and so beautiful.
Exactly. Wow. And so how was postpartum with Layla? So you obviously had a toddler to look after, and then you had a newborn. How was that journey?
It was good. The first few weeks were good. So obviously, as I said, my family usually go away to Bright. It was such a beautiful spot. So when she come a little bit earlier, Mark and I looked at each other and we're like, do we go away? And then we're like, right, we're not making any decisions until, a few days, until my milk comes in, until I know, how my body's feeling, until we know that Layla's feeling okay and feeding and, all that really, really important stuff. But she got to 6 days old and we thought, we could still go away for just like 4 nights. And we're really fortunate enough to have, so we usually camp, but we've got some family friends that have a cabin in the same caravan park.
Yeah.
So they offered it, that cabin to us for 4 nights. So very, very fortunate, very thankful for them for allowing us to stay there, because it just would have been too much to camp.
Yeah.
But we had actually an ensuite in the van as well. So we went away when Layla was 7 days old, just for 4 nights. And that was everything, because my whole family were up there. Mark's whole family were up there. Like, that was our village.
Exactly. That's right.
And I think it would have been harder for me to stay without my village, having a little bit of FOMO, because, you know, summer holidays, I want to be with everyone. I want to be out there. Yeah. And it's such a beautiful place too. Like, it's just it just relaxes you when you go there. So I went and I just held my little newborn. Mark chased after Harvey the whole time. And it was a really beautiful way to spend our postpartum up there.
Yeah.
It obviously got a little bit busier once we got home, and, you know, reality set in, and I got tired, and Harvey got needier, and Layla woke up a little bit more, and she had a really hard witching hour for about, I want to say, 10 weeks.
Wow.
She would just scream from like 7 till 12. And, you know, I know a lot of newborns do that, but because Harvey didn't, I just, it was really hard. And then, you know, you've got Harvey, and I was not prepared to split myself into 2. Like, I wasn't prepared to be needed by 2 really tiny people. And, you know, I thought Harvey was old back then, but he was only 2, and Layla's just turned 2 now. So now I look and think, gosh, I could have a newborn right now. You could be a big sister. He was really quite young, and he's got a really strong attachment with me, which we've worked on. And, you know, that's the way that we've decided to parent. But it's hard, you know, when you're carrying a 2-year-old and a newborn around at the same time. And the first few months were really quite tricky just to get the hang of things.
Yeah, and I think it's, regardless of age, it's this transition of adding a new family member, regardless of the age of your children, is hard. But when you have a toddler who's 2, it's especially harder, because they understand some things, but they don't fully understand everything, obviously, for obvious reasons. They're 2, right? So they don't understand that, you know, mummy is busy and mummy's got to feed Layla, and mummy can't play with me right now because she's feeding, or because she's, you know, attending to Layla, and, you know, obviously their reality was they've had mummy and daddy for he's had you both to himself for 2 years. And then all of a sudden it's not that. So obviously it's a whole transition for everyone, not just for Harvey. It's for you, it's for Mark, it's for Layla. It's tough. But I mean, like, now I'm sure it's really, like, obviously you're still going through transitions as, you know, Harvey is getting older and Layla is going through toddlerhood now. It's like, it's obviously different, but I'm sure the fact that they're 2 years apart is, like, they're really, like, close, and they really play with each other in their own way, I guess. Right?
Yeah. They've really started to seek each other out to play.
Yes.
And, you know, that was always going to be waiting on Layla developmentally to want to, you know, join in with what Harvey's doing. And for her, she's still learning to follow his rules and, you know, not to, you know, touch his trucks, or, you know, like all the things that 2-year-olds still learning how to do. So it's definitely busy, but at times they play really beautifully together. So I really look forward to watching that progress as they get older.
That's amazing, Sarah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking about this incredible, you know, journey of yours and those 2 incredible births you had. And wow, it's so empowering to hear about your stories and to hear how everything unfolded and nothing went to plan, but the birth had its own plan, I guess, in a sense.
Yep. Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. That's been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been great.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to get notified of when a new episode comes out, please subscribe to this show on your podcast listening platform. Also, I would really appreciate it if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcast or share this episode so that other moms can find it. If you would like to tell your own pregnancy, birth, or parenting story, please head to the show notes and you will find a form there to get in touch with me. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I will be with you again next week for a new episode.